Hey everyone, and welcome to the Kimberly Guilfoyle Show, right here on Rumble, where facts come first and where news is done right. And today we sit down with Plot Against the President author Lee Smith to do a deep dive into how the FBI, the DOJ, and their allies in the Democratic Party used the phony Russia hoax to launch a soft coup against the duly elected president of the United States, Donald Trump. And we'll take you through the story from beginning to the end. Lee will bring us explosive news from his investigative reporting, all the behind-the-scenes details, and how he uncovered one of the biggest abuse of power scandals in American history. We'll take you on a journey that shows you how all of this major institutional corruption is undermining our democracy, how the media fueled the lies, and how to be prepared for what's going to happen next. And it's more relevant than ever following the findings in the Durham report. While we know about the corruption, where are the charges? So be sure to like and subscribe down below. This is going to be a fantastic show. Make sure you never miss an episode of the Kimberly Guilfoyle Show. Share this video and tell all your friends. And with that, we bring in author of Plot Against the President and author of The Permanent Coup, How Enemies Foreign and Domestic Targeted the American President, Lee Smith. What a pleasure to have you on the program.
Kimberly, thank you very much for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be with you and your great audience.
Fantastic. Okay, first off, I want you to, if you can, for our audience, are very fascinated in your book, in your investigative reporting, lay out where this story starts. Where does it begin and how you started to unravel this collusion hoax?
Well, I'll just say that it starts before the Durham report picks up. And this is, you mentioned the Durham report in your opening. And this is one of the big questions that lots of people have right now, including different congressional investigators I worked with. They want to know why the Durham report just seems to pick up around July 2016 when they saw this story set in motion a long time before. Look, I'll tell you what, or Donald Trump aides were a Russian agent, right? What it was they wanted a pretext to spy on Donald Trump. And here's why they wanted to spy on the Trump campaign. It was because of Hillary Clinton's private email server, right? It was vulnerable to all sorts of attacks from foreign intelligence services, from organized crime. Remember, some of these exchanges with some of her aides had already gone public. What really concerned the Clinton campaign was there was going to be evidence of Hillary Clinton corruption, right? That was leaked somehow, that this was going to be dropped as an October surprise, and the Trump campaign would benefit from evidence of Hillary's corruption. So that's why the FBI spied on Donald Trump. They wanted to know if the Trump campaign had any idea, if anyone had anything in store regarding an October surprise. So that's how it started, and that's why it started.
And so you picked it up from there, and did it, really exceed even your wildest imagination when you started to unravel this and do your investigation?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's terrible. The idea that the FBI, Department of Justice, were involved in an espionage campaign against Donald Trump. And then after the election, when the CIA and President Barack Obama got involved in a propaganda campaign targeting Donald Trump, and therefore the half of America, at least who voted for Donald Trump, yeah, it was pretty shocking. So people compare it to Watergate, and it's much, much worse than Watergate. For, among other reasons, what was used to spy on the Donald Trump campaign were official U.S. taxpayer resources, FBI personnel, Department of Justice personnel, as well as different programs and resources, again, paid for by the American public. In Watergate, with Watergate, all of these people were former officials. And then, of course, Nixon was eventually flushed from office, right? But no one ever made the people who were harassing Donald Trump go away, right? And that's the point of the Durham report. These people, or that's what the Durham report underscores, that these people are still around, right? These people were the ones who managed the 2020 election interference campaign against Donald Trump. Remember, that's what this is. This is fundamentally election interference, right? Spying on a presidential campaign smearing him as a Russian spy. This is election interference. It happened in 2020 to protect Joe Biden corruption as well. And the same thing is happening right now in 2024. So unfortunately, having watched this unfold for the last 7 years now, I'm a little more jaded. I'm not as surprised or as appalled as I was in 2016 and 2017. It's still very bad, though. It's very bad for the Republic. It's very bad for the American people. And it's very bad for our national security, too.
That certainly is. Talk to our viewers about some of the, biggest early signs or red flags where you thought to yourself, okay, the FBI is really out of line here, and this is a total lie being pushed to the American people.
The earliest signs, well, there were two. First of all, I grew up in New York City, and Donald Trump has been a name that's been ringing in my ears since the mid 70s. Everyone knows who Donald Trump is. And the idea that somehow, and also the different businesses that Donald Trump was involved in, obviously these would be different enterprises that would be watched closely by the FBI, the New York Police Department, and by the New York Press Corps when there was a real press corps. So the fact that Donald Trump never got in any trouble with any of these people was an indication very early on that even before he decided to run for president, that Donald Trump was a remarkably clean businessman. And that's certainly not the case for all businessmen in New York. And so the idea that somehow this got past everyone in New York City, that Donald Trump was in fact coordinating with Russian spies is absolutely, that immediately struck me as ridiculous. And all the people in the New York press corps who fell for it are dangerous idiots. Look, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the E. Jean Carroll story that just came out. I was speaking with a friend of, it was Devin Nunes, I know was on your show recently too. And Devin and I were talking about this. Again, I was raised in New York. I saw this story about E. Jean Carroll and Donald Trump walking into Bergdorf Goodman, and apparently there was no one else there. It was just Donald Trump and E. Jean Carroll is ridiculous, right? I mean, again, at that point in New York City, even though E. Jean Carroll can't remember the point, let's say it's about 20 years ago, when Donald Trump walks into Bergdorf Goodman or any store in New York City, people go, "Hey, Mr. Trump. Hey, Mr. Trump, I have a copy of Art of the Deal. Can you sign it? Hey, I saw you on Heart to Heart." I said, whatever, right? So it's just a matter of basic common sense, which the American people have. And that's why the American people thought the story of Donald Trump being a Russian asset was preposterous all along to normal Americans. It was to the press corps, the dingbats in the press corps, as well as operatives in the federal bureaucracy who were trying to set up Donald Trump. That's the people who are pushing the story, and that's the people who will believe the story and tell this profound lie to their children and their grandchildren for several generations. And that's the lie that will be taught in public schools in blue cities for several generations. This pathetic, disgusting lie that has divided our country.
It's shameful. And here we are in 2023. Can you imagine this has been going on for all of these years? Well, let's talk about some of the biggest bad actors throughout all of this. Certainly, Adam Schiff. Talk to me a little about him, and I'll take you through some of the other people as well.
Yeah, Adam Schiff. This was a guy throughout. I mean, we all remember the scene when he got on. This was, I guess, it was early 2017 when he got on Tucker Carlson, and he starts accusing Tucker Carlson of being a Russian asset, a Russian spy. And this was a taste of things to come. This was a taste of the insanity to come. And Adam Schiff, of course, is a player in Plot Against the President, my book, and also Amanda Milius's great movie documentary Plot Against the President, because Adam Schiff was basically campaigning for a Senate seat, right? That's what he was doing. So he was all over the press, making a lot of noise. Yes, collusion. There's more than circumstantial evidence. I just can't tell you about it. Look, he was sitting on the truth for years. The guy is, and we saw more of him, of course, during impeachment proceedings when Congressman Nunes again called him out for what he was doing. This just bizarre, entirely weird scenario where he was talking like a mob lawyer or something like that. So yeah, he's a bad guy. But of course, at the center of it were the FBI, senior FBI officials. One of the things that we found out in the Durham report, we didn't know before, was what a large role James Comey played. I think that came as a surprise that Comey was right in the middle of this. And Comey was one of the, he was one of the leaders. He and Andrew McCabe.
Yeah.
These were the guys who were running this investigation. So that was surprising.
Now, what about, Jim Comey? People have very strong feelings about him and how complicit he was in all of this.
Yeah, I think that, he's a pretty slippery guy. He managed to evade. Well, they all evaded accountability. There was no accountability, and there will be no accountability anytime in the near future. So yeah, this is Comey. They've all published books. They've all gotten TV contracts. They're all received as heroes in blue sectors of America, whether it's the 92nd Street Y, where James Comey bragged about setting up Michael Flynn because the Trump administration didn't have everything together at that point. Andrew McCabe gets on TV. They're celebrated by the left. And it's a terrible thing. It's terrible for our country, but that's how it looks right now. These things will change in time, but that's what's happening right now. The bad guys, the cretins, the creep parade marches on, and these people continue to be celebrated.
It's really bad because they're not only celebrated, but they are rewarded. They have received financial incentive for their lies and for their collusion and for what they've tried to do to a duly elected president. And that is so shameful. It's sickening when you see them on CNN or they're doing their books, et cetera, and they continue to lie. Even in the face of the evidence to the contrary, they're continuing to manufacture these lies and to deny any wrongdoing. And it's just unbelievable because it's pure evil. Because how can you say these lies and with a straight face on television and continue to lie to the American people? And that's what I think is very frustrating, because people want to see some repercussions, some punishment, some justice, charges, et cetera, for these people that are walking around freely after what they did.
Yeah, it's, as I say, unfortunately, this is, a lot of people had a tremendous amount invested in John Durham. And again, so he published a report, but we didn't want a report, right? I wrote a book. I don't need a report, right? And Amanda Milius made a movie. If they want to give me and Amanda Milius badges and subpoena power, we'll go and do the investigation and we'll get indictments and we'll fight for convictions. We didn't want a report, right? What we wanted were indictments and successful trials and convictions. And that's not what Durham turned around. He turned around a report with some interesting details for people like me and others who've been following the story closely, but insofar as bringing accountability to the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, to top officials at the CIA like John Brennan, to different Obama administration officials, there's none of that. None of that at all. And you look at the different people who have suffered, and of course, Donald Trump's family at the very top of the list. You have a whole bunch of Trump aides, from General Michael Flynn to Carter Page, George Papadopoulos. But then you look generally just at the American public. Right? This is not what's supposed to happen. So there is no accountability right now, but I am confident that someday, in the not too distant future, there will be accountability. The criminals responsible, Donald Trump, for the classified intelligence, for January 6th, for all these other matters, that's simply a continuation of what started in very early 2016, maybe even late 2015. So we've seen this going on for perhaps 8 years, and it's going to continue for a while. But eventually it will end, and when it does end, there will be accountability, and the American people will taste it.
Well, I hope so. From your mouth to God's ears. But they're trying to interfere in the 2024 election already with these fake investigations and phony indictments, and now with the whole Jack Smith situation going forward, and the documents, the raid, at Mar-a-Lago, it's unbelievable, and you see the juxtaposition, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, and just they are getting away with everything.
Yeah. Well, this is the point. A lot of people talk about a two-tier system of justice. It's not really how I see it. I mean, I think it's actually lawlessness, right? It's like laws being used as an instrument to target the ruling family, the ruling party, the ruling class, their enemies. Right, that's all it is. And it's not like they're not paying. It's not as though, oh, wow, look, no one is holding Hunter Biden accountable for breaking federal gun laws the way they would someone else. Is like, that's just not what happens, right? That's not why people like the Bidens or the Democrats acquire power, right? That's not why Adam Schiff acquires power. They acquire power to be able to exercise power over their adversaries. They don't use power. They're not responsible people. They don't care about the country. It's not like they're using their power and authority to make sure that.
Unbelievable. And I want to talk a little bit about the Steele dossier. Now, from the start, it was obvious, right, that it was unverified gossip, and rumor. But that's not how it was used by law enforcement. I mean, they weaponized this, fake dossier. And they covered in the media, basically covered it up and just acted like it was, had total veracity. What do you think the Americans at this point need to understand about Christopher Steele and his behavior?
Well, I wrote a lot about him in Plot Against the President. And, there just all the lies told about him, that he was a super spy for the British foreign intelligence service, and none of these things are true, right? You see the different things from the Durham report, but other pieces of evidence too. It's like a lot of his British colleagues didn't have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I mean, the guy was paid to lie, right? It's important we talk about him as a British former spy. He's an FBI informant. That's what they did. They paid an FBI informant. This guy was already being paid for the FBI to provide information for other investigations. Goodness only knows if those investigations were on the level or if those also were crooked, like the Trump investigation. But that's who Christopher Steele was. He was a dirty informant who's being paid by a bunch of dirty cops to lie about Donald Trump. This, I think, is essential. We can talk about Russiagate, and I can explain the details, and I can go through the whole thing. I basically memorized that garbage dossier. I know everything there is to know about it. I'll tell you this. The story about Russiagate is very simple, and it's this. One politician got a bunch of dirty cops to dirty up her opponent. That's all it is. That's what Russiagate is. They make movies about this, or they used to make movies about it. It happens in small towns. It happens in state legislatures and state governors' mansions. As it turns out, it also happened in Washington, D.C., and the names were a lot bigger. The name of the dirty politician was Hillary Clinton. The name of the dirty cops included, it wasn't just a bunch of beat cops. It was the director of the FBI, deputy director of the FBI, the whole seventh floor of the FBI, and a whole bunch of top guys at the Department of Justice, too. And what did they do? The whole thing was just to dirty up their opponent, Donald Trump. That's the whole story. Everything else is just interesting detail that is important for the American public to know, so they know how to recognize this garbage when these people push it on the American public. Look at all the different lies we've seen since Russiagate, from Kavanaugh, impeachment, Charlottesville, right? And I mean, Charlottesville was a profoundly destructive lie. It goes to the fabric of our society, right? That was terrible. And look at the George Floyd riots, systemic racism, another lie. Look at the lies told about COVID. Look at the lies told about the vaccines. Look at the lies told about January 6th. Look at the lies told about Joe and Hunter Biden. No, it's not Hunter's laptop. It's Russian disinformation. It's lie after lie. But the big original pattern was set with Russiagate. That's why it's important for people to understand the connections here. It's press, big tech, intelligence services, senior Democratic Party officials. Sometimes they'll throw some Republicans in there too. But that's the essential formula right there for people to understand, for Americans to understand. And I know a lot, your audience, Kimberly, is sane. and coherent and whole. And I know they don't believe the garbage pushed places like CNN or MSNBC, but some of the times that garbage seeps through to other places too.
Yes.
This is how you recognize the lie. Who's participating in it? Who's pushing it, right? Media, big tech, intelligence services, political operatives.
Yes.
Be careful, because if you invest in this lie, it may cost you, your family, and your community very dearly. That's why it's important to know the details of Russiagate.
I couldn't say it better myself, I have to tell you, and that's why it matters. And we can't just let things go. We have to learn, we have to understand, and we have to recognize it when we see it coming up again, because they keep doing it over and over again, and we got to stop them. In 2024, we can. Of course, this was all used essentially as a basis to spy, which is also unbelievable, on Team Trump. And I remember when President Trump went on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl and told her that he was going to, oh, you can't say these lies, that we don't have evidence of that. This is 60 Minutes. We do things differently. He's like, what are you talking about? It is true. They did spy on Team Trump and on the campaign. So talk to us about what sort of spying occurred. How did this ever get in front of a FISA court in the first place? And why wasn't the FISA court more forceful in pushing back?
Well, one of the things that we've seen, this is one of the things that the Durham report unintentionally shows us. This is something that we started to see as, I think most Americans started to realize there was something wrong with the justice system when they saw how General Flynn was treated by this, by this lunatic judge, Emmett Sullivan, in Washington, D.C. So if we go back to that, the October 21st, when the FBI got this spy warrant to go after the Trump campaign, then let's zoom all the way up to, what was it, August 2022, when a Florida magistrate signed a warrant for the FBI to raid the home of the former president of the United States and the front runner for the 2024 Republican nomination for president. I mean, we're looking at problems, not just with the legislative branch, like Adam Schiff, as you said, not just with executive branch agencies and their leadership, James Comey, William Barr, unfortunately, right now, Merrick Garland. It's not just that. We're also talking about the judicial branch of government as well. So that's what we as Americans are looking at. We're looking at problems with our three branches of government. We're talking about how the separation of powers has not only been polluted, but those three branches that are supposed to be equal and independent have all been corrupted.
All corrupted and working in concert and colluding with one another, essentially. But still, to me, and I think to so many Americans, it's pretty remarkable that this story was front and center for years, Lee, despite no evidence whatsoever to support it. Even Mueller and Andrew Weissman couldn't find an ounce of evidence for collusion. So, how much of an indictment is that on our entire justice system and, quite frankly, the media establishment?
Well, you make a very good point about the media there. I mean, again, we're talking about, this is one of the surprising things to me during Russiagate, or during the middle of it, how everyone is out here vouching for Robert Mueller. Oh, Mueller's a up and up guy. He would never do this or that. Again, these are things that we know in American culture. It goes back to the wild, wild west, right? They're dirty sheriffs. There are lots of movies about this. People who live in America and who watch American movies know this, right? We made up-to-date movies about it. It's what Serpico is about. All these things are about dirty cops. The idea that there would be dirty cops somehow in America, that this was so far beyond the scope of commentators that they couldn't imagine that maybe the FBI was up to no good, is just ridiculous. The media issue is central, right? I disagree with many friends about this. A lot of my friends say stuff like, well, the media is really the weakest component. I'm like, no, the media is not the weakest component. Yeah. The media is the platform for all of this. If you didn't have the media doing all of this stuff, the intelligence agencies would not be able to get and Nika Brzezinski. We're talking about the prestige print media organizations in this country, the New York Times and the Washington Post, right? These were at the center of Russiagate. without these organizations pushing what they did, without them taking leaks of classified intelligence to prosecute a campaign against the president of the United States and his aides, these things would not have happened the same way. They might not have happened at all. So it's very, very important that we understand and discuss the media piece of this, because I agree with you 100%. This is central, not only to understanding Russiagate, but central to understanding what ails our country right now.
You're absolutely right. I think the media is really a huge component of it, and people need to understand that. But I think they're starting to wake up to it, because they're even seeing that it's coming from Fox News and other places, that want to suppress the information. Even more frightening when you think about it, Lee, is that if Hillary would have won that election, despite everything they did to try to destroy Trump, he still prevailed. Devin and I talked about that. But if she had won, we might never have really known the full extent to how this whole plot was being hatched.
There's a way, and I don't think we'd be Pollyanna-ish to say there's a way to see everything that's happened the last 7 years in a very positive way, and what you're discussing is part of it. It's improbable that all of this corruption just started in 2016, a drop in October surprise to crush Hillary's campaign. So we know this corruption has been going on for a long time. So what do we have now? We have right now the fact that the American public has more access to the truth. We know how destructive social media can be, Twitter and Facebook, right? We know this, but also we know how positive social media can be. Look, we're here on Rumble. We have Truth Social. We have Locals. And by the way, just for a quick plug, if you don't mind, I hope that people will follow my new Locals community, leesmith.locals.com. Anyway, back to what I was saying, which is this. It's just that we can see this very positively. Now we have a clearer picture of what lies in front of us, what the fight is. If Hillary Clinton had won the presidency, it's just that we wouldn't know about Russiagate. We'd still be stuck, right, in this palace, in this funhouse palace where nothing made sense, but we didn't have any key to it. We didn't understand it. But now, right now, we do have a better understanding. Now we know what they're saying when they say insurrection on January 6th. Now we know what they mean when they raid Mar-a-Lago, right? Now we know what all these things mean, what vaccine mandates mean. So it's actually a very important thing to have these revelations, and for the eyes of the American public to be opened finally, because that would have been the real cost that Hillary Clinton won. Not just that Russiagate would have been obscured, but that all of these things, and as anxious as we are now, and as brutal as this campaign of desecration and demoralization has been, as terrible as that all is, it's much better than all of us walking in the dark and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. After the COVID lockdowns, what happened? There were even people who came around, who opened their eyes, people who were preaching all the garbage about Russiagate and about Kavanaugh and this and that. They're like, oh my God, these people just tortured my children for 2 years. Maybe they've lied about everything else too. So it's not just a positive spin. We can also look at it as a real blessing. And that's how I've come to think about everything that's happened. We get to talk to each other. We have communion with our fellow Americans. We understand the fight in front of us and what we're up against and who our adversaries are.
Well, you put it in a very positive way, but I agree. And I want to talk a little bit back, circle back about Durham and how Durham fits into this sort of larger, mosaic. We touched on it in the beginning, but do you feel, personally that the report was extensive enough? I know you said for, people really follow it closely. There were a few threads and things in there that you found interesting. Do you think there's anything that he missed? It just seems like this took forever, and people had this big expectation to come out of this.
Yeah, and people, because because we as Americans have faith in America, right? We can see these people dragging our country through the mud all the time, but nonetheless we believe, well, but there has to be someone there who's doing the right thing. There has to be someone there because that's what our country is. So there's someone somewhere doing the right thing. And that's certainly what people wanted with the John Durham investigation. I think we also have to understand the context within which Durham was working, and part of that has to do with Merrick Garland and Joe Biden's Justice Department. That's a big deal. But also, look, we have to go back and we have to understand, unfortunately, it appears that William Barr wasn't entirely on the level either. There's lots of evidence for a lot of bad things that were going on. Look at what happened. Look at what happened in the run-up to the 2020 election campaign, right? The FBI set up a specific task force, right, to go after social media platforms and to start censoring Trump supporters, right? To stop censoring people who had questions about COVID, or who had questions about especially the new voting regulations, right? Oh, whoever's questioning the lack of voter ID is a conspiracy theorist. Anyone who had concerns about ballot harvesting, conspiracy theorists. And these people were thrown off Twitter, right? Lots of the times because of this FBI task force that was set up to censor people. Reports of Hunter Biden's laptop censored by the FBI. Well, under whose supervision? Mm-hmm. Right? The FBI is a component of the Department of Justice. All of this was done under the supervision of William Barr. What happened? He just wasn't paying attention? Was he asleep? Did he know what was happening and didn't do anything about it? So it's not just the fact that there were no indictments before summer 2020. We needed those indictments. Why? To send a strong message that the people who interfered in the 2016 election would not be able to do it again in 2020 because they were held accountable for the bad things they'd done 4 years before. Because no one was indicted before the election season began, that sent a clear message. It was a message to incentivize the same agencies, the same people, and the same industries to again interfere in the 2020 election. These are issues that need to be raised with former Attorney General William Barr. So as he makes his tour throughout the corridors of the Washington press corps, right, including some ostensibly conservative news organizations, someone might ask him some of these questions. What happened? How did the FBI set up this censorship unit on your watch? You weren't watching? You keep saying there was no evidence of election interference, Mr. Barr. So when President Trump was complaining about election interference, you said there was no evidence. And yet there was an FBI unit who was interfering in the 2020 election, working under your auspices. Do you care to explain that, Mr. Barr? So these are questions, some of which that need to be posed to people like William Barr. So we talk about accountability. This is one way to get accountability. The people who are responsible, make them at least own their responsibility. If they're not going to be led away in orange jumpsuits, at least let everyone know who they are. At least let everyone know what they did and what they did not do to uphold our justice system, to uphold the integrity of our electoral system. And Mr. William Barr.
The other way, I really am curious as to exactly the extent of his involvement or, orchestration in all of this. And the other
censorship task force. A censorship task force was set up at the FBI, and they protected Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. The same way in 2016 that the FBI and DOJ protected Hillary Clinton. It was under William Barr that the FBI and DOJ moved to protect Joe Biden in 2020. That's what he did up. He set up a censorship task force that protected the Biden family from their own exposures of evidence of their own corruption. Bravo, William Barr. What a hero.
Unbelievable. I mean, covering up essentially a criminal enterprise. And let's touch a little bit about Joe Biden and how he is implicated in all of this.
came up with the idea of charging General Flynn with the Logan Act. I have to say, I find that a little unlikely, unless that's something they teach at the law school, where apparently Joe Biden was the most impressive law student in Syracuse history. Maybe they teach the Logan Act there, and maybe that's why Joe Biden came up with that genius idea. No, Joe Biden was in the center of it, right? He was in the center of 2016, and of course, 2020 was all about Joe Biden. Here's the other thing. If you look at what the FBI and the DOJ do, and what and also Democratic lawmakers do, the impeachment having to do with the Ukraine phone call, this was nothing but a cover-up for Joe Biden, Hunter Biden corruption in Ukraine, right? So you have to wonder, why is it that all of our branches of government right now are moving in lockstep to cover up the corruption of the Democratic Party and senior Democratic Party officials, whether it's Hillary Clinton, whether it's Joe Biden, or whether it's even Barack Obama. It seems to have escaped many people's attention, incredibly. In a Washington courtroom recently, Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the biggest stars in the world, testified how a corrupt Malaysian billionaire sought to push $20 to $30 million into Barack Obama's 2012 campaign. As it turns out, this Malaysian billionaire appears to be controlled by Chinese intelligence. And no one's investigating this. No one is looking at this. Again, it's not like it's some nut who just walked in off the street and wrote a piece of graffiti on a building in downtown Washington, right? It's Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the world's biggest stars, and he said it in a Washington courtroom. So that's Democratic Party corruption. That's the way our branches of government are. 3 branches of government are in lockstep, covering up the Obama-Biden faction corruption.
Outrageous. Now, your work also identifies some crimes that were committed as part of this effort, to take down Donald Trump. But as you know, we're still not seeing any of these charges. What crimes do you see? Because this is where people want to know, where is this going to go, forward?
I think that what people want to see, I maybe spoke about this with former Congressman Nunes. He talks about, and there are other people too on the Hill, some Republican lawmakers who are talking about bringing Durham to testify, bringing other people to testify, basically using the Durham report as a platform to continue to investigate. They're running out of time, so they better get on it. But I think that's a possibility. Look, Congressman Nunes and his team, when their investigation, at the end of their investigation, what they did was they sent 8 criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. I think they added another later, but they sent 8 original referrals to the Department of Justice. Right. As I recall, there were 5 specific charges having to do with particular laws that people broke, which was lying to Congress, lying to the FBI. And they never disclosed the names of those people. Then there were 3 charges that were related to conspiracies. Right. So Congressman Nunes' team laid out what this conspiracy looked like. And this is what the Durham report is. The Durham report is an account of a criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States, to frame the president of the United States, to plot against his administration. That's what it is. We see what they did now. Almost all the evidence is there. The issue is that Durham just didn't bring charges. And how much of that is Durham's responsibility? How much of it is his fault? Or how much of it is the fault of Merrick Garland or William Barr? We don't know right yet. Maybe that's something that congressional officials will find out if they bring Durham and others to testify on Capitol Hill. But that's the issue. We know what the crimes look like. All the crimes are enumerated in the Durham report. He just declined to prosecute for a whole bunch of reasons, some of which are absolute baloney. But look, one of the issues is to try to bring any of these cases in a Washington, D.C. courtroom is very, very hard, because Washington itself is a profoundly corrupt city. It's a sick, twisted little prison island in the middle of our great country. And it's a shame. I lived in Washington for many years. It's a beautiful city, but the amount of corruption there and sickness and the amount of damage, how damaged these people are, that's one of the reasons why it'd be very, very hard to get convictions of these people putting away their of corrupt bureaucrats putting away their corrupt bureaucrat neighbors. So that in itself was not an easy task.
No, even if you drain the swamp, trying to get some criminal convictions out of it when you expose all of this corruption is exceedingly difficult. But Lee, I want to say what a pleasure it's been to have you on the program, a great investigative journalist and author of The Plot Against the President. Tell everyone where we can get your book, and let's plug your Locals channel again.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Yeah, leesmith.locals.com. Just starting off, putting out some great stuff on the Durham Report and other things. Look, there's a lot that we're fighting right now as Americans. Please follow along. Please join up. Plot Against the President. See the movie. Read my book, but see Amanda Millie's great movie too. It's really, you're in it.
I know.
You have a great role. You say great stuff.
It's
a lot of heavy hitters in that movie. Really, whenever I see the trailer, I'm like, God, that movie looks so great. I can't wait to see
get compliments on it.
Happened.
People absolutely love the movie. So well done as well by Amanda, your colleague. But thank you again. And people check out the book. They can go and get that as well. And, keep us posted. You're always welcome on this show. Any stuff you want to talk about that you think the American people need to hear, you have a home and a place to do that. And congratulations on your new Locals channel.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Thanks.
All right. Be well. And my closing remarks just ahead. But first, I want to make sure that I thank our wonderful sponsors who make this show possible. Sponsors like Genucel Skincare. With Genucel, you'll find yourself looking refreshed, rejuvenated, and years younger right before your eyes. Genucel's secret is a family recipe for over 20 years that makes it safe for all skin types and perfect for both men and women. And it's always cruelty-free and all natural. And right now, Genucel is upgrading their most popular package to feature the top-selling vitamin C serum plus the Ultra Retinol Moisturizer. I have them. I use it. It's fantastic. So take advantage of this limited time package upgrade for 70% off. Stay healthy and be your best with Genucel. So go to genucel.com/Kimberly and get over 70% off Genucel's most popular package. All right. And that's not all. You will also get a complimentary Spa Essentials box with every package that you order. So discover the Genucel difference and visit genucel.com/Kimberly today. And I also want to bring you a special message from Patriot Lifestyle, where you can save more and spend less on a whole host of different benefits, from non-insurance healthcare benefits to savings on travel, identity theft, legal services, and even pet care. Take a look. Hi, this is Kimberly Guilfoyle. We've commissioned a lifestyle benefit program for our America First Patriots, Patriot Lifestyle. This program includes identity theft protection. And as a former prosecutor, I know that identity theft is the fastest growing crime in America. You also have free and discounted legal services, roadside assistance, travel discounts, cashback rewards while shopping on the internet, and our newest service, Pet Assure. Right, Mario and Luigi? Where you receive discounts at veterinarians across the country and pet supply stores. Patriot Lifestyle covers you, your family, and your furry friends for less than $1 a day. Follow the link and please sign up to get your Patriot Lifestyle started. And we'll soon have even more major updates on all the Patriot Lifestyle programs. It's an extraordinary value and it will greatly improve your life. And lastly, don't forget about the great folks over at Goldco, because gold and silver can protect your retirement savings from inflation and dollar devaluation. Look, we see all the economic warning signs. We see banks collapsing. We see reckless spending. And I want you to be ready. I'm ready. With Goldco, you can roll over your 401k or IRA into precious metals and safeguard your savings tax and penalty free. From precious metals, IRAs, to direct purchases of gold and silver, Goldco has helped thousands of Americans diversify and protect their retirement savings. Go to kimsmetals.com to learn more. That's kimsmetals.com. And in closing tonight, I want to take a moment to remember the brave men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice as we observe this Memorial Day, and we thank them for their service. While we enjoy this day with our loved ones and usher in the unofficial start of summer, take a moment to reflect and remember the heroism and bravery from those who served and sacrificed so much. It is those fallen heroes who took their final breaths defending this nation, and it is because of their patriotism that allows America to continue on its never-ending journey of prosperity and freedom. Let their legacy never be forgotten, and take a pause to remember this day's true purpose and meaning. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today, right here on Rumble, where we reject the false narrative and always seek the truth. And be sure to like and subscribe to my channel at Kimberly Guilfoyle. Turn on notifications, download the Rumble app, hit the like button, and tell all your friends so they know exactly where to find us. And if you liked the show today, give it a like. I think Lee Smith with the Plot Against the President was fantastic and very eye-opening. And also be sure to follow me across all platforms: Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, and Instagram. And don't miss Don Jr.'s show at 6 p.m. Eastern tonight. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all here on Thursday. God bless.